All right, recording started, so you can begin.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are you all this evening?
Good.
Okay,
Good, good, good,
good,
good.
good, great. Okay, so in today's session, my colleague Brittany Bell and I, Valini Samaru, will be exploring Chapter 7 Interacting in Teams and Groups. So, if you have any questions along the way, just please feel free to stop and ask. Or if you don't want to say out loud, you can put it in the chat and we'll answer to the best of our abilities. Okay? Okay, let's begin. Okay. This chapter explores the characteristics of groups, the way groups develop, and the dynamics among group members in order to emphasize how leadership in groups is process oriented. The chapter presents concepts of teamwork and collaboration in group work and applications of the relational leadership model. Sorry. Understanding groups. Every day we come across many types of groups, whether they may be highly structured or formal groups with defined roles and processes, such as classes in a school, or loosely structured or informal groups, such as a group of friends discussing the next activity they plan to do. However, in this session, we will be looking at a different meaning of group. So the question is, what is the definition of a group for the purpose of this leadership and ethics course? This chapter defines a course as three or more persons interacting and communicating interpersonally over time in order to reach a goal. There are different ways or dimensions in which groups can be structured that may determine the type of leadership dynamics of groups. Simply put, the dimensions determine the types of leadership that will be used. So there are three key dimensions we should look for to better understand the types of group we may encounter, and these are purpose, structure, and time. But what do these mean? Well, different groups are created for different reasons. For example, a group can simply exist as a friendship group or as members of staff in an office. The purpose of a group will determine the type of structure and processes that will be needed for members to achieve their purpose. Structure relates to the mechanisms for how people in a group relate to each other. That is, are there hierarchical rules? Or maybe each member is given a position? Or are there none of these and the structure is undefined? Structures of groups may be formal or informal depending on the group's purposes. Additionally, leadership rules in groups may vary depending on the structure. So, for instance, a group may not have a leader and members work together to accomplish a goal. Or a group may be highly structured with a formal leader that holds a position, such as a manager or so. Or there may be a group with a hierarchy but no formal leader. Time refers to the length of a time a group exists. Different groups exist for varying amounts of time, depending on the nature of their purpose and the length of time needed to accomplish them. Groups may be time limited, meaning they'll meet for a set number of times. So, for example, let's consider the groups that we have been placed in for this course. These groups we have will last until we have completed the presentation, which in this case is our purpose. After that, we may be placed in different groups for different assignments. Ongoing groups, on the other hand, are those that continue for a long time. So, for example, those of us who work, we are part of an ongoing group, which includes our work colleagues. And our ongoing purpose would be the product or the service that we are supplying. Okay, so taking these dimensions into account, we'll now move on to group development. In 1965, Dr. Bruce Tuckman, a psychologist at Ohio State University, published a theory called Tuckman's stages of group development. At that time, it was only a model of four stages, which was forming, storming, norming, and performing. But in 1977, the fifth stage, which is adjourning, was added, and this was done together with Marianne Jensen. So, to explain this, we have a short video. Is everyone seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If it has sound, we're not hearing it yet, though.
You're not hearing it?
No, you have to share your sound from the top options.
Can you show me where to do that, please?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. Are there options at the top or like at the side?
No.
No, you have
So
to
I
go
thought
to
it was.
you have to go to the options in Google.
Present mode, yeah.
Yeah. The three dots. Settings, I believe.
Gosh, I'm so sorry for this. It's my first time presenting. I'm not seeing the option.
Huh. That's interesting. It's not there. Are you getting this sound from your end?
Yes, I am.
You could turn it up, and maybe we'll pick it up through your speakers.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Let's try that and see.
Are you hearing it?
Not really.
No. Are you using a microphone by chance? Like a jack into your PC?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Are you using a microphone? External mic other than your PC?
No, I have the headsets in.
That's why we
Take out the headset and then try again.
Okay, no problem.
Of team development.
Are you hearing it
We
now?
initially developed this back in 1965
Okay.
with 4 stages and then added a 5th stage in the
better restart it.
1970s. These 5 stages
Restart?
of team development are
restart the video.
Okay, thank you.
Number 7 in the 42 ideas on leadership comes to us from Bruce Tuckman, and it's about his 5 stages of team development. He initially developed this back in 1965 with 4 stages and then added the 5th stage in the mid-1970s. These 5 stages of team development are forming, storming, norming, forming, and adjourning. Now, these together mean that a team typically moves from forming through the different stages until it's finished its task and it adjourns. However, it is possible to have looping and jumping stages. This means that maybe you go from forming, storming, norming, and then back to storming again, performing, and then back to storming again. It's also possible that you move directly from forming to norming, or from forming all the way up to performing. This is possible. It's possible to have looping and jumping of stages. However, the normal, typical structure and system is that you go from forming to storming to norming to performing and adjourning. Let's look at this in a little bit more detail. The forming stage means that at this point, people are dependent on the leader. People are coming together, the roles and responsibilities are not yet clear, and people are learning about each other. They're on their best behavior, they're putting their best self forward, and they're focused on their own goals rather than on the goals of the team itself. At this point, there are lots of discussions around what the task is, what the objectives of the team are, and how the team is going to operate. This sometimes then leads to conflict, where there are challenges to the leader and other members, but at this point also we have greater clarity about what the team is supposed to be doing. Sometimes cliques and factions are created at this point and the group splinters. However, at this point, it's also when people decide what should be done and how it should be done. And this inevitably can create lots of questions, which sometimes may lead to conflict. The conflict, very often emotional, and it can be upsetting for some members. The result of this is that if they don't bypass stage 2 or at least go through it, some teams can actually break up. However, as I mentioned, some teams don't have any conflict, they work quite well together, and they go straight through to the norming stage. At this point, if there is conflict, it's necessary to be tolerant, sometimes compromise, and by focusing on the goals of the team, it's possible to drive on through to the third stage. The third stage, this is norming. This is when rules are established for the group. There's clarification around roles, there's clarification around the objectives. Agreement and consensus are formed, and the big decisions are taken by the group, not by the leader. At this point, there's greater commitment, there's greater unity, and all of this is because the leader has facilitated a team and has created and helped to create a common goal for the team. And as we looked at in another one of the ideas in the discipline of teams, all members take responsibilities. There's mutual accountability here on the team. So the role here for the leader is facilitating and enabling. The next stage is performing. At this point, if they've moved on from norming, the team is performing well. They're strategically aware, there's great synergy, all bound around a shared vision for the team. As a result of the shared vision, people have a greater degree of autonomy because they know what they have to do to reach that vision. Team members look after each other and support each other. And it is true that sometimes there's conflict at this point, but that's okay, because what it does is it permits the group to move even faster towards their goal as people discover the objections of others and answer those objections, or maybe learn from those objections. The team is highly motivated, and because of all of these areas, because of a shared vision, synergy, autonomy of the team members, and channeled conflict, the leader is able to delegate tasks. And instead of pushing or even trying to make sure that the team works or provide ground rules, the leader instead is able to provide personal support to individuals on the team. And finally, when the task is done, well, we've got a journey. That's the breakup of the group. The purpose has been fulfilled. At this point, especially if the group has been working very well together and developed a bond, it's necessary to have recognition and be sensitive towards the vulnerabilities of the people on the team. Some people may find this very upsetting. At this point, the leader moves on, and as a result of all of these, sometimes this stage is also called mourning. So what we have then is we have the 5 stages of the team. We start with forming, we move to storming, then on to norming, forming, and then a journey. And finally, we start again. So this is number 7 in the 42 Ideas on Leadership, Bruce Tuckman's 5 stages of team development.
Okay, so just to check, is everyone seeing this?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, you
thank
get
you. Okay, good. All right, so just to give an example of the stages, I decided to use our group presentations. So earlier in this semester, we would have decided on topics to present, and the group members would have been selected. So when this was finalized, I'm sure we all attempted to have meetings and whatnot to determine the course of action for completing the assignment. So in many cases, I'm sure we probably shared phone numbers and created WhatsApp groups to do that. Well, this would have been the forming stage of the group development. The storming stage would come when all the discussions would begin on exactly how we want to accomplish the purpose of creating the presentation. And now, not all members may agree with the ideas suggested, but here is where we discuss it until we come to an agreement on the methods of how we are going to complete the presentation. So this then takes us into the norming stage, where now we have regular meetings or we're messaging each other and we're discussing and working on the presentation. So maybe we would have decided to probably use Google Docs. That's what we did, and probably work according to how it's convenient to you. Or if not, we would have probably come together at the same time and then worked on the presentation. But we're basically getting used to the way the group functions and we're understanding how each other works. So ultimately, we are now at the performing stage where things are going good and the presentation is coming along. It's looking good, or we're almost ready to present on the day. And then we reach the day of the presentation and we are going to just get it over with. So we follow through, presentation is over, and this is the end of this assignment. So here we've come to the final stage, which is the adjourning stage. And the purpose is complete because we've developed the presentation and we've presented it to the class. So that's been accomplished. So I have a question. Answer if you all like. Has anyone realized yet where you are according to the stages of group development? And would you like to share where you are at? Anything?
Well, currently, my group and I, which would be Mr. Amon, we went through
Mm-hmm.
forming, storming, Norman, and now it's on the day. So we are stage 4, performing,
Okay.
right after you.
All right. All right. So we're almost at adjourning. Great. Thank you for answering. Okay. So moving on, as we explore the development stages, we'll now look at the relational leadership model and how it applies to each stage. So, the relational leadership model is defined as a relational process of people together attempting to accomplish change or make a difference to benefit the common good. This philosophy values being ethical and inclusive with holistic thoughts. So, my colleague Brittany, she will explain more on this topic later on, but right now we'll just look at what the relational leadership model philosophy suggests should be done to encourage positive outcomes of the groups. So we have a table here with each of the stage and the philosophy, some of the things that should be done to encourage a good teamwork then. So forming, leaders are expected to be inclusive and ensure all members are involved. So they encourage interaction and discussions and then have identify common purposes. So you want to get them all involved in the processes of the group. Storming, be open minded, ethical, and patient to the views of all. You have to effectively listen. You want to directly address any conflict and encourage members to give their thoughts. Because everyone have ideas and opinions, and you want to get everything before you all can make a decision or so. You want to create a culture in which members feel they matter and are committed to the group. Norming, ensure clarification of members' individual responsibilities to the expectations of the group and vice versa. You want to be fair and encourage cooperation and collaboration and ensure members, both old and new, because there are some cases where it is you would get new team members. So you want to ensure that they are involved and informed on the matters regarding the teams. Performing, you want to be empowering and motivate members to try and learn new skills and talents so you can broaden their range and whatnot and help to better the outcome of the team. And finally, adjourning, we recognize and appreciate and celebrate achievements. At the end of the team, we want to make sure everyone feel proud that they have finally accomplished their goal and recognize their inputs and things like that. So that you show good leadership with that as well by encouraging everyone to keep working and things like that. So now I will pass you over to my colleague Brittany, who will explain more on group dynamics.
Good evening, everyone. Today I'll be presenting to you group dynamics. Group dynamics is defined as the various procedures a group takes to obtain a specific goal or objective. For example, the way the group makes decisions or how they handle conflict. In order to completely understand group dynamic, you must first understand the role members play in a group, their norms, creative conflict, and how group members make decisions. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, firstly, group rules. In any given interactive setting, people, whether intentionally or unintentionally, their communication patterns tend to show, and those patterns can indicate their stance or role in a group. For example, I'm sure everyone has met or been in a group with someone who is able to clearly state their opinions or feelings about something and might have thought, wow, they could possibly be a good leader because of their assertive communication style. Roles can be seen everywhere and they tend to be influenced by our actions. Next slide, please. There are two main types of roles that are necessary for effective group dynamic: group building roles and task roles. Group building roles focus on the group as people. They are more likely to be responsible for building or maintaining the relationships among group members and also attending to the process of the group. While task roles tend to focus on accomplishing the goal of the group by giving information and helping the group to move along. They try not to stick on like one content that does not concern obtaining the goal. Next slide, please. As you can see, we have a table with some common roles that can be seen in almost all groups. The first one is an information seeker, which is someone who tries to get all the necessary information before making their decision. An opinion seeker, someone who tries to push someone who tries to push their group members to share their opinions before moving on. A clarifier, they explain the context of the meeting by elaborating in new words to add meaning and to show how it might possibly work. A follower, someone who actively listens and is willing to take part in whatever decision the group makes. The mediator, someone who prefers to resolve conflict and opposing points of view is made a clear way. A gatekeeper, someone who invites those who have not been able to get their opinion out, maybe because they're shy or they're introverted, to say something and to be a part of the discussion. Next slide, please. This chapter focuses on this classifying dysfunctional roles into two categories: special interest pleader and blockers. The term dysfunctional role in a group can be used to classify individuals who willfully hinder the process of a group. Next slide, please. A special interest pleader is someone who may continuously push their points even if the group has already moved on. This is because they might sometimes have a hidden agenda. While a blocker, as the name may suggest, refers to someone who intentionally resists other members' ideas or the group's process by being negative and disagreeable. One thing to keep in mind is that not everyone who gives criticism can be classified as a blocker. Although criticism can be considered to be a bad thing, in most cases it can also be a good thing and even necessary to the group's progress. Next slide, please. In all social gatherings, whether formal or informal, there are consistent practices that illustrate the expected and accepted behavior of attendees. Like, does the group focus on the necessary discussions or do they wander off topic? These little cues are the norms of groups. There are two examples that this chapter showed, which is the Robert's Rule of Order and cultural practices. The Robert's Rule of Order is a set of rules that were developed to ensure the fairness and effectiveness of a meeting, like speaking in turns and voting in order to determine what decision is taken. As for cultural practices, their influence in groups can be seen as the little habits that group members may unconsciously do, like the way they set up their chairs, or intentionally, like beginning each meeting with a short introduction, description, and purpose. A short introduction and description of its purpose. Next slide, please. Creative conflict. According to Cambridge Dictionary, conflict is defined as an active disagreement between people with opposing opinions or principles. Conflict within a group can be both detrimental and necessary to its progress. Unresolved conflict within a group can create a hostile climate and stunt their progress. On the other hand, conflict can boost the creativity in a group and encourage members to invent innovative solutions. Throughout all of the group's developmental stage, conflict can mainly occur in the storming process because this is where all the members are discussing their ideas and trying to figure out what what it is they should actually agree upon to do in order to accomplish the goal. Next slide, please. There are three main causes of conflict: clashes in personality, role conflict, and controversy. Clashes in personality can occur because of the difference in personal preference, learning preference, and if the members is not focused on listening and understanding each other. Role conflict can refer to any misunderstanding that may occur about the role and expected and what is expected of others. And lastly, controversy can be referred to as the differences in opinion and ideas among members. Next slide, please. A few advantages of conflict are: it can increase the motivation of a group, it can clarify roles or issues, and it can increase self-awareness. But at the same time, it can also be time-consuming, difficult to resolve, and it can also weaken the bond or motivation of the group. Next slide, please. What is the best way to resolve conflict within the groups? Anybody know?
Good communication.
Yeah. That and also by using negotiation and mediation strategies, by trying to find a common ground and compromising among each other, you can be able to resolve almost any conflicts that you might face. When conflict is resolved, there are three main possible outcomes that may occur: a win-win, a win-lose, and a lose-lose. Next slide, please. A win-win situation is where everyone benefits from the resolution. Both sides' opinions are heard, and any necessary adjustments are made to accommodate all ideas. A win-lose scenario is when only one side benefits from the resolution. In these scenarios, only one side wins by using power strategies such as out-talking or putting down their opponents. Then you have the lose-lose scenario, which is where no one benefits. Both sides use these power strategies to attempt to win, but instead results in no effective resolution or compromise being reached. Next slide, please. Mhm. Who makes the decision in a group? Anybody knows? In most instances, both positional leaders and the group members are responsible for making decisions. But there are times when a group isn't able to meet up with the leader, or is they need to represent the group, and in those times they need to be able to make the best possible decision that benefits everyone. One tool that can be used to ensure this is the relational leadership model. The leader could ask these questions. Next slide, please. Does the decision support the group's vision or mission? What opinions would my group members have about the issue? Would this decision increase or decrease our involvement? Is it the right thing to do? And should I involve others in this decision making process? Next slide, please. In most instances, both the positional leader and the group members are responsible for making decisions. Sorry about that. Although a positional leader makes individual decisions, the majority of the time they tend to use a leadership style called participative leadership. To simply put it, this style refers to the process of including others' opinion in the decision-making process. This leadership style enforces the idea that better decisions can be made by including others' opinion. In most situations, the positional leader has a responsibility to decide who is allowed to be involved and to what extent. Next slide, please. A possible decision-making method was introduced by a management professor, Gary Yokes, who identifies four decision-making procedures. Autocratic, which is when the positional leader is responsible for all of the when they are responsible to making they are responsible for making all of the decisions. Consultation, when the positional leader asks other people for their opinions and ideas before they even make the decision. Joint decision, which is where the leader and the members all have a discussion to talk about what they think is the best possible outcome and they make that decision together. Delegation, which is when the leader gives the individual or a group the authority and the responsibility for making that decision. Next slide, please. Although using decision-making methods can be effective, the characteristics of relational leadership promote finding or reaching a consensus. In most situations, we tend to leave most of the decision to be made by the authoritative figure. However, it can be more beneficial to discuss and create a consensus model on the issues. According to Renner, 1996, consensus doesn't mean that everyone on the team thinks that the best possible decision is reached. It does mean that no one is professionally violated by the decision and that all team members will support the implementation of it. Reaching a consensus doesn't mean that every single decision is made by the entire group. For example, one of the tasks of teams is to make decisions. So some teams might find it easier to reach a consensus on all important decisions that can negatively affect the group. A quick way to determine whether or not the issue might be worth a group decision is to look at the quality and the acceptance needed for the decision. The quality of the decision can be seen as how important the decision is, and the acceptance can be thought of as whether or not the decision needs to be accepted by everyone in the group. Next slide, please. Renner identifies four guidelines for reaching a consensus within teams. Step 1, define the issues that the team is facing. Step 2, focus on the similarities between the positions. Step 3, ensure that there's enough time for discussions, because this to find a consensus can be a lengthy time. Step 4, avoiding tendencies that reduce conflict, like voting. Don't be too fast to vote and not have enough time to actually discuss and everyone get their opinions out there. In addition to those guidelines, teams on their journey to reaching a consensus must be willing to use various strategies like active listening, compromising, and collaborating with each other. Also, group members need to be comfortable with managing conflict and have enough time to do so. Like I just said, now I'll pass you back to my colleague, Olini.
Okay, teamwork. So, teamwork, there are many definitions to teamwork. One of those definitions may be the combined actions of a group of people working together effectively to achieve a goal. So, for example, this can be sporting teams, gaming teams, an art team, team of workers, etc. They are all coming together to achieve one certain goal or more goals. So, with this definition, we can see some similarities to groups, but not all groups are teams. So, why exactly are teams different from groups? So, to give a little insight on the differences between teams and groups, we have another short video.
Have you ever wondered if you're leading a team or a group? To lead effectively, it is important we recognize whether we are leading a team or a group. The difference is subtle but important. We don't coach a baseball group or lead a focus team. We coach a baseball team and lead a focus group. Let's understand the difference. In this short video, we will compare and contrast teams and groups by looking at the definitions and characteristics. A team is a unit of two or more people who interact regularly and coordinate their work to accomplish a shared goal or purpose. The three key components being that teams are made up of two or more individuals. The individuals in teams work together regularly and they share a goal. A group is comprised of three or more people who recognize themselves as a distinct unit or department, but who work independently of each other to achieve their organizational goals. Let's note that groups are made up of three or more individuals that work independently of one another toward their organization's goals. Let's delve a little deeper and contrast the characteristics of teams and groups. Teams share or rotate leadership roles, whereas a group has a designated strong leader. Teams possess accountability mutually as a team and as individuals. Individuals and groups generally only feel accountable for their independent work within the group. This may be due to the fact that when performance goals are set, teams set their goals themselves, whereas performance goals for groups are often set by others. Teams typically have a very specific vision or purpose, whereas the purpose of a group tends to be that of the organization. Teams work beyond organizational boundaries, and groups work within them. Teams thrive in providing open-ended discussion, active problem solving, and mutual feedback, whereas groups thrive with meetings and delegation. The next time you're leading two or more people, ask yourself, am I leading a group or a team? Remember these subtle differences that will make a big difference in your impact as a manager or leader. Have fun.
Okay, so we explained the differences between groups and teams. Let's move on to types of teams. There are three main types of teams, and these are functional, self-directed, and cross-functional teams. Functional teams have a vertical or hierarchical organizational structure. So there are different levels or positions in a group, and power or authority are obtained at upper levels or positions. So, for example, at work, let's say in our office, there are the subordinates, then there's the supervisor, the manager, director, or so as you go up. And the power that each one of them has vary according to their levels or their positions. Self-directed teams are those in which members possess the knowledge and skills needed to accomplish the goal, and they also incorporate various talents and abilities to do so. So in this case, there is little to no direction from supervisors or managers because they are all equipped of directing the team as a whole. Cross-functional teams are those in which members possess different skill sets or levels of expertise from each other, and they cooperate by combining these skills or expertise to achieve their goal or purpose. So again, let's take a company as an example. You have the finance department, the administrative HR departments. They are all different in terms of they do different things. Their workers would be qualified differently from the rest, but they're all working towards whatever product or services it is that they supply. So they're all coming together with various skills and talents and whatnot to accomplish a goal or goals. So all teams, no matter the type, have goals that they want to work towards. However, in order to be successful in achieving these goals, there must be a clear goal that is understood and agreed upon by all members. To do this, there is something called the SMART rubric, which is the recommended framework that teams should use to ensure successful and achievable goals. When establishing goals, teams must ensure that the goal is one, specific. So here you have a clear goal, which is understandable by all the members, and they know exactly what it is that they are working toward. Two, measurable. Here the goal is quantifiable, meaning you are given a number to the goal. So, for example, you're raising a fund for charity, and the goal is to raise $100,000 to give to charity. That there is you're giving a quantifiable goal, so you're able to measure it, and you know what exactly you're working towards. Three, attainable. So here you want a goal that is realistic and achievable. So nothing that is out of the capacities of the members, something that you know the members are equipped of achieving. Four, relevant. Here the goal is aligned with the direction and the overall strategy of the team or organization. So basically it's relevant to what the team is about and what it is that they want to achieve. Five, time bound. Here you want to give the team a time as to when you hope or want to achieve the goal. You're setting the time frame so members know what they are working with, and it makes them feel a bit more in control so they know exactly how they can achieve these goals. So any questions? Okay. So teams have persons of different levels or knowledge and abilities or skills, and they must work together to achieve a goal. So along the way, they'll have to learn how to work with each other. So now we're moving on to team learning, which is, well, it can be defined as leaders build team learning beliefs and behaviors, navigate the learning cycle, recognize and overcome barriers, and facilitate teams through a progression of phases that lead to high performance learning. Team learning must be part of the common language of the team, which is used to develop the team's shared vision. It is important, and leadership must work to establish an environment that engenders appropriate levels of control and participation. Teams must find a way to learn together rather than as separate individuals, so a shared vision can be developed. You want to explore the learning preferences of each team members to find out the preference of majority, which can help the learning process, because not everybody learns the same. Everyone learns differently. They may learn through visual, or they may learn through doing hands-on things, but everyone learns differently. And here you want to find out at least what is the majority preference so that you can help them to learn better as a team. Team learning happens when there is dialogue among team members. Usually, team would engage in discussion, which can lead to debates. And while views are shared here, there isn't much understanding of others' opinions or ideas, because you're arguing which opinion or idea is better and which one you should go with. So you're not really paying attention to the others or giving them a chance to state their points. So this can lead to teams not performing well because you're not getting them to cooperate properly. Dialogue, however, is different from discussion. So here it is necessary because it allows members to clarify their points instead of arguing it. You are listening to other people's points of views, and you are not debating what is right or wrong. You're effectively listening, which is important. And by doing so, you're able to come to a conclusion or decision. And finally, as teams develop through the 5 stages of development, team learning occurs. It's an ongoing process, but it helps to make teams more successful in their goals. So it takes time, but eventually teams will learn how to work with each other. They learn as a team, basically, and they know how to work together to achieve that shared vision that they would have. So now I'll pass you on again to Brittany, who will explain leadership implication.
Leadership implications. In a In a productive work community, leaders are not commanders, controllers, bosses, or big shots. They are servers, supporters, partners, and providers. In all settings, especially in teams, leaders act as facilitators of team learning. Leaders act as facilitators of team learning. Good leaders are able to engage their members to explore their motivation and advocate for their own interests while actively listening to everyone opinion and finding a consensus. This chapter emphasized on the importance of both team members and leaders taking the time to understand their success and reflecting on what they did to make them successful. I don't know about everyone, but as for me, I rarely ever reflect on the process that I actually took in order for me to get success, for me to be able to be successful at something, but I will spend days or even weeks reflecting on my failures. Next slide, please. Team leadership. In order to understand team leadership, we must first understand the two main functions of it: team performance and team development. If we were to think back to the relational leadership model, they stressed on the importance of this function: process oriented, aka team development, and purpose, aka team performance. Team performance refers to accomplishing the group goals and plans, making decisions, and resolving problems, while team development refers to establishing effective relationships, creating a climate where members feel valued and encouraged, and cohesive with the team. Next slide, please. Characteristics of leadership. Leaders are tasked with handling both internal and external demands. They are constantly
Hello?
Brittany?
Hi, Bell?
So I'm not too
Maybe
sure.
internet cut.
Yeah,
Probably.
hold on. There's a break in the internet there. Um, Try messaging her directly and see if, let her know what's happened. Yep.
Yes, I'll try that.
Yeah, she has a break in her internet there.
Yeah, she did say the internet was giving some trouble.
Yeah, it tends to be spotty sometimes. She should come back in this now. So she'll have to pick back up on this slide.
No problem.
Keeping the recording going. Let's hope she didn't lose power.
I hope so. Okay, I got through to her. She said the internet did cut, so I think she's trying to work on it.
Anybody has any questions they want to ask while we're waiting for Bell to come back in relation to what took place before?
To interrupt, she's trying to reconnect. At the moment, it's given some trouble.
Yeah. Might be problematic, but let's see. What part of Trinidad is she in?
I'm not too sure exactly where.
Or Tobago for that. Let's go.
Okay, I'm not too sure if we lost her again because I'm not getting through. She's probably trying.
Uh-huh. Can you pick up?
Sorry?
Can you pick up where she left off?
I can read on the slides, so she has all the explanations in depth.
Going so well.
Yeah.
Right, so I was asking whether or not there were questions at this point that we might be able to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking generally from the class in terms of teams and groups. The area that she's working on is coming up pretty close to the end of the chapter.
Yes.
Okay, I think you're gonna have to make a try at going through the rest here. Unfortunately.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'll read through it if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so characteristics of leadership. Several researchers and scholars have identified 8 characteristics of team leadership. This is according to Hill 2004. So there are 8. 1. Clear goals. 2. Result-driven structure. 3. Competent members. 4. Unified commitment. 5. Collaborative climate. 6. Standards of excellence. 7. Principled leadership. And 8. External support. Establishing teams. According to Hughes, Binet, and Curfey, 1993, there are 4 necessary components to establish any team: task structure, group boundaries, norms, and authority. And that's the end. Cecil, she would have had the more detailed explanations. So I'm so sorry for that. And thank you for listening, Paul.
All right. Anything you want to do to summarize?
And not really. So in summary, I think teams are different and they consist of different members. So there are things that leaders must do in order to ensure that teams can work successfully. And they have to incorporate certain things such as learning about the team members, trying to find a common ground where they could come together and work towards a shared vision and try to avoid conflict, things like that. Yes, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right then.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from everybody? All right. If not, I'll stop the recording.
No, sir.
All right. Cool.
Thank you everyone for being patient.